G'day folks and welcome to the Vookcast, Australia's Nintendo podcast. My name's Oliver Brandt and in this episode I'm joined by Michael Goncalves.
Hey team.
And Luke Henderson.
Hello there.
Completely messed up like 4 words in, that's just excellent. We've got a great episode lined up for you, all about a very timely recall, a couple of interesting trademarks, new Animal Crossing logo, new Nintendo Switch Online games, an Indie World showcase, and so much more. But first, let's talk about a curious new classification that has popped up on the ESRB. So, the ESRB is the US's Entertainment Software Rating Board, I think it stands for. Either way, it's their classification bureau that is not government mandated, but probably should be. So, there's a new classification that's popped up for something called Nintendo World Championships NES Edition. So there's a description in the ESRB application. Let me just read that out. It says, this is a collection of 2D challenges and platformer games in which players traverse through various modes, e.g. speedrun and survival. Several challenges involve reaching specific points, while others prompt players to defeat small enemies or survive brief battles. Some games depict pixelated characters using small swords, arrows to strike at enemies. Enemies typically get stunned or disappear in a flash. So I always love like this very clinical language that they use for like video game classifications, where they just like boil down game mechanics to like the most plain and silly language. But yeah, the text of that does suggest that it is perhaps a new version, a port, an enhanced remake, something of Nintendo World Championships from the NES. But yeah, it's a bit curious. We don't really see leaks like this anymore from ESRB. So if this is like a new game, which kind of suggests, you know, everything we've seen so far points to the fact that it could be a new game, kind of like an NES remix, but with a more competitive slant to it. Yeah, we don't really see leaks like this coming out of the ESRB, at least not for Nintendo games. Other games all the time, but Nintendo's usually like locked this stuff down pretty tight.
Well, especially after the Smash Brothers 3DS stuff.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, obviously we don't have a whole lot to go on, but like, let's just assume that this is essentially a competitive spin on something like NES Remix. Is that something people are interested in? And also, is this like the most like late console Nintendo thing ever? Because I kind of feel like it is.
I'm intrigued that it's subtitled what it's called, a NES edition. Because like, yeah. I'm not having a stroke. Like, it only ever released on NES, right? There's no other Nintendo World Championship games.
Yeah.
I feel like,
I mean, we just had really the Nintendo World Championships for Mario Kart, so.
I mean, I guess if their intent is to make like a SNES edition or Game Boy edition or something like that as well, that'd be pretty neat. But I highly doubt it. Although Nintendo is struggling for content, so that does seem like a thing that they would do. It is super late. I totally agree, though, and I don't know if people really want this or care, to be honest.
I think like the thing is, right, like if this is going to be like a physical release, right?
Oh god, I hope it isn't.
Like the minimum price that they're going to be able to set for this is like $50, because that's like the lowest price that we've seen on. I mean, we've seen like 45 for Metroid Prime Remastered, but even still, like the minimum price is going to be $50. And like, is anybody going to pay $50 for what this sounds like? Conversely, this is Nintendo. Is anybody going to pay $70 or $80 for it because it's Nintendo? Realistically, that's kind of what we're looking at.
It's either going to be a digital release or included with Nintendo Online, maybe.
Yeah.
If this is a physical release, it has to be more than just the World Championships card, like on NES, because that is wild. If it's more like a NES remix style game, which if that is the case, I don't know why you wouldn't just release NES Remix 1 and 2, because those games fucking ruled. It's very odd.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like, we can't make too many judgments about it until or unless it's revealed, but
I mean,
yeah,
you sure
like,
can. That's this podcast.
But yeah, it is definitely a very weird space to be in, where we have like this like small amount of information. It's probably not just a straight port, but yeah.
I mean, even they spent a lot of time with the NES remix. Obviously, there was 2 on the Wii U and then the 3DS port. They've obviously spent some time, breaking down NES games. So them doing more with that sort of tech makes sense. And I suspect that's probably what they're doing here, is they're using that stuff to make a modern version of this rather than porting around the one from the 80s. Because the one from the 80s was a very limited thing. Not in terms of its release, but in terms of what it offered. And I don't think just a port of that would work in today's gaming landscape. Like, if it was included in your NSO membership, or if it was just, a free download or something, then sure. But I don't think that port alone no one would be able to justify a cost of buying that. So I think this is a new version using the NES Remix base, but using the World Championship branding.
Unless their intention is to actually run a Nintendo World Championship style event. Well, not obviously that big of an event, but like an actual competition around these games in high schools, which is possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just super weird. The other option is that it could be, made by the people who, I've forgotten their name, made by the people who do Tetris 99, etc. Akira, that's the one. Because, obviously they've had experience with kind of recreating NES games with Super Mario Bros. 35. This could just be a more expanded version of that, but yeah, who knows at this stage. It's just like, whatever it is, it sounds like an extremely Nintendo thing to do. Like, no matter how they do it, it's gonna be like, well, this is kind of cool, but also the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Which is like, prime Nintendo stuff.
I was gonna say, that's pretty much our bread and butter.
Yeah.
We all go for that sort of stuff, so.
But yeah, I mean, like, if it is just like the NES game, like, it's stupid, like, just put it on NSO instead. Like, why is this a separate thing? But the fact that it's called Nintendo World Championships NES Edition is like, there has to be something to that. I think you're right. We're not going to see a SNES one. Like, it's just not going to happen. But
Still, the end of the Switch 2's life, they'll finally do a Super Nintendo one. I mean, but we all thought they'd do a SNES remix as well at some point after they did 2 NES remixes, and that just never happened. So,
I mean, I think part of the reason for that is that, like, SNES games are a lot less easily
hackable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they're definitely easily hackable, but like, when you look at like NES games, like, all of them run kind of mostly in the same way because the hardware was so simple that you could only really do things one way. So
yeah,
that's why people like decompile like NES games fairly easily. Because at the end of the day, it's just a set of machine instructions. With the Super Nintendo, you're getting into like the earlier like game engines and stuff like that makes it much more difficult to break down in the same way. But
You don't know like the technicalities of how NES Remix works, but I've always assumed it's just they have the NES ROMs and load a save state, basically like a preset save state into some.
I assume that's probably
area.
how it works. Yeah.
Which I feel like you could at this point definitely do that for NES, for SNES. Sorry.
Yeah, I think the thing is like, it's I mean, essentially they're just like ROM hacks, the NES remix stuff. And you can do obviously the same with Super Nintendo. But I think like getting like mirror polish stability in an NES game is probably a little bit like a hacked NES game is probably a little bit easier than a hacked Super Nintendo game. But like it's Nintendo, they can do it. They have been working with Super Nintendo games for years, so decades even. They could do it. But yeah. Anyway, completely beside the point. There's a Nintendo World Championship game probably coming at some point in the future.
We're 4 weeks away from the time formerly known as E3, so who knows?
Yeah. But speaking of potentially late game Nintendo Switch content, there's some more regulatory shenanigans going on. So Australian trademarks have been filed for full blocks, which is called Stretchmo elsewhere, and Kirby and the Rainbow Paintbrush, which is the less good Kirby game on the Wii U. I don't want to say it's bad. It's just not for me or anyone.
I'll say it's bad.
So yeah, these trademarks were filed in March and advertised in early May, but existing trademarks for both already exist and don't expire until 2025. So this could just be a transfer of trademarks, as Nintendo Australia used to use third parties for filing, but now it does it itself. But it can just renew trademarks with a new trademark owner as well. Like that's a possible thing to do in the Australian trademark system. Of course, like the usual caveats apply for anything trademark related, in that like it's not evidence of news in itself. But you know, these are interesting games to pick. We usually have a Kirby game every year, and we haven't really seen one at all this year.
You're saying we usually have it?
Move right on from that one. So yeah, this could just be a trademark, like a regulatory thing. They're just covering their butts, or it could be that Full Blocks and Kirby and the Rainbow Paintbrush could come to Switch. If they do, are you going to buy either of them, Michael?
I mean, probably. Like, my dumb idiot brain will probably buy them. But you know, I can't imagine any other Wii U titles that people have been asking for. Not at all. That could probably be more warranted than this, but you know, it is what it is.
Can you imagine if we get to like the proper end of the generation and we have Kirby and the Rainbow Paintbrush on Switch, but not either of the HD Zelda games?
That's the most peak Nintendo shit that I've heard in my life, to be honest.
Yeah. But no, I mean, like, I think Kirby and the Rainbow Paintbrush is an interesting one because, like, you can't. I mean, you could play it with like a pointer rather than a touch screen, but it's like very much built around the touch screen. So you draw paths for a Kirby ball to roll along. So if that does come to Switch, I'll be really interested to see how they implement that.
It'll be definitely one of those games that's like better played in handheld type of dealio.
Yeah. Or you know, maybe they just like let you play as Waddle Dee the entire game rather than having to do Kirby stuff, because
just remove Kirby from the game. It's not allowed.
Honestly, like playing that game as Waddle Dee is a much better experience because all of the levels are designed like 2D platforming levels, and then like if you're Kirby, you're just like, you know, whizzing around in the air with like drawing lines and shit, and it's like, well, why does this exist when like player 2 is off there having the time of their life playing the traditional Kirby game, and I'm just like drawing circles in the air.
Don't forget, we also have Kirby's Air Ride, which people think is an amazing racing game, and it's like, it's not that great. So Kirby games sort of range from great to, okay, why does this exist? And this particular game falls into that category. The first game on the DS, yeah, I adore that game. I thought that was a fantastic release. What was it? Cursed Canvas or something, I think it's called.
Mm.
Oh, Canvas
yeah.
Cursed.
Yeah. Canvas, yeah.
Yeah. And I thought that was fantastic. And the reason why I don't like the Wii U version is it should technically be the same experience, but it's like I'm drawing on one screen, but the action takes place on the TV. If that was ported to the Switch, it may work. Like if they brought that game to Switch, it could work because you're interacting with it. But again, it just doesn't fit into what the Switch is supposed to be. And whereas the DS, it was always in your hand. So I personally don't think if they do anything with this, it'll be worth it, because I think the game is an inferior version of Canvas Curse, and that was what it needed to be, and that was because of the hardware at the time.
Luke, I think you'll find that Canvas Curse is actually called Power Paintbrush and Power Regions because for some reason we're not allowed to have curse in the title.
I'm pretty sure I had it on my American DS, so
yeah. I mean, the same is true of Rainbow Paintbrush, which was called Rainbow Curse everywhere else, but for us it's just you're just not allowed to have curse in the title.
It's too scary.
When Daniel was talking about full blocks,
scary.
When Daniel was talking about full blocks getting trademark, I'm like, what the hell is full blocks? Like, I had never heard that name before, because again, I played the Stretch Mo series on my 3DS, which was North American, so I didn't actually know the Australian name was different until I think the Wii U release of that series. So
see, what we really need is like a new updated modern Kirby stream course. It's like something that is just Kirby mini golf again. I feel like it could work.
I say this every year, but Camelot Software, they do one game every 12 months, and for the last like decade and a half, they've bounced between golf and tennis for Nintendo. But we already have a Mario Golf game, so maybe they're going to do a Kirby Golf game for you, Ollie. Maybe that's what they're working on for 2024.
Maybe. I just feel like there's a lot of space for like every time like a mini golf game gets released, like it like blows up on YouTube and Twitch and stuff, and like all of the streamers and shit play it with other streamers, and it sells millions of copies. Just like do that for Kirby. Have like proper online play.
I feel like we've peaked at mini golf games though. Like we have Golf with Friends on PC, and the other one, the similar Golf with Friends game, Golf with Friends 2, whatever the fuck it's called.
Yeah.
Which are both very similar. But I think they've just both nailed the mini golf with friends. It's like scenario. Like I don't know how much more you can improve that, especially when these PC games, I think they both have Steam Workshop support, which just allows for the most insane like levels that people create. It's super good.
But on the other hand, there's no Kirby in those games, so like
I mean, I'm sure you can mod Kirby in, although Nintendo would probably trademark it and then
I mean, with how they're doing with like Steam Workshop at the moment, like with all the Gary's mod stuff,
Don't forget, there's also like Marble Madness is a big thing for Twitch streamers, and you could just imagine like Kirby's rolling through Marble Madness mixed Kirby. There's a lot of options there.
In any case, at the most, it's going to be Kirby and the Rainbow Paintbrush, which, like, sure, okay, and maybe Full Blocks, which would be nice because I've actually not played any of that series, so I would like to see
a good series.
What it is.
Like, they're not challenging puzzlers, but they're twisty puzzlers. You just got to work out the right pattern, and once you have that, it's fine. But just getting to that point can be annoying at times.
Alright, so let's move on to the next thing. This one I just included because it's quite funny. I mean, it's definitely like a safety issue, but it's also very funny. So there's a ride-on Mario Kart that is like electric powered for children, basically. And it's been recalled because the accelerator can get stuck, and then it gets stuck in just go mode. So there haven't been any like deaths or anything. Let's just put that out there from the get-go. Nobody's died because of this. Just like a couple of grazes apparently. But this is really funny because like just a few weeks ago, the exact same thing happened with the Tesla Cybertruck from the largest electric vehicle company in the world.
No, I was thinking the same thing, that the Cybertruck has the same issue as this children's toy.
Yeah,
Have the same build
exactly.
quality, basically.
So yeah, the recall seems to be happening mostly in the US, but at the moment, no retailers have it listed at all in Australia, suggesting that it applies here as well. But no, I just thought this was very funny because it was like just like 2 weeks after the exact same thing happened with the Cybertruck, which, you know, obviously much higher stakes, but still, just incredible scenes, honestly. But yeah, I mean, I certainly would not be like. I've always thought that like these like kind of electric like small vehicles for children, bad idea to begin with. Like I get that it's fun. I totally like understand that for a child, like hopping into a small like car and then like whizzing around, super fun idea. They just seem like death traps to me. Like it seems like that like the inevitability is that somebody's going to drive one into traffic and they're so small and
They also
hard to see.
weren't not cheap, like $850. Like
Yeah.
that's crazy.
But yeah, wild stuff.
When I first saw this thing, I was like, oh, that's cool. And then I'm like, oh yeah, it's for kids. So, you know, the people who actually have the money to buy it wouldn't actually be able to use it. Which is always just the most hilarious things. But it's like with the recall, and Jax who made this, they did a shit ton of the Mario merch from the movie last year. They've been doing Mario stuff for a decade and change now. They're generally pretty good. So I'd imagine this is just one of those things where it was something that just came about after time. Like there wasn't something that they were testing for specifically, because how can you test, you know, in a 6-month production window about how much dust can get beneath an accelerator pedal over 2 years? So I think this will probably get reissued, you know, with a slightly different design and, you know, a rubber seal around the accelerator pedal or something. But I personally doesn't impact me at all. But yeah,
I'm more amazed any of these lasted 2 years for this to be an issue, to be honest. Like,
and that's the other thing, they're so expensive, but like the build quality, it's still plastic at the end of the day, right? It's still gonna like break apart, and like a child's gonna like be really fascinated with it for like a week and then not use it for like a year and a half.
And they take like 9 hours to charge for 30 minutes of playtime.
Yeah. But no, when I saw this tweet, it was the tweet that announced the recall. I genuinely thought it was a shit post, because it was just like right after the Tesla stuff happened, and like it was just like, oh yeah, Mario Kart, right on Mario Kart Racer, you know, recalled due to stuck accelerator issues, and I was like, yeah, this is just
you had to check to see if it was the Onion, didn't you?
Yeah. But I mean, it was like from the Wario 64 account, which like posts a lot of like gaming news and deals and stuff, but like also has been known to like shitpost a bit. But yeah, no, this is a totally real thing. So if you have a 24 volt Mario Kart ride-on racer, maybe consider contacting the retailer or manufacturer to see if there's a recall, because we couldn't find it on the website, but it could be a thing. Or maybe just like throw it out, or if it's within the refund window.
Within Australia too, there are processes to go through your retailer of purchase.
Yeah.
So if there's something that, if you bought it from EB Games who were selling it for a while, you can go back through them for refunds and returns.
Consumer law, baby.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, what a strange scenario. But also, like, don't buy your children those death traps. It's just not worth it.
Yeah, if you want to do Mario Kart in real life, just go to Tokyo and do it on the roads there. It's going to be infinitely cheaper in the long run, and it's going to be far more enjoyable.
Go to Tokyo. It's fine.
Buy them a Switch with Mario Kart. It's cheaper and infinitely better.
I mean, even honestly, like, do Mario Kart Live. Like, they still get to like drive a little vehicle around, but they can do it without having to be in it. And if it gets run over by a
buying
car,
a Switch OLED with Mario Kart Live and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, again, is still cheaper than buying one of these.
It is, yeah.
I was going to make a joke about how Mario Kart 8 has that always driving mode for kids, and this obviously was just a software update to allow for that functionality in real life. But
yeah. Again, it's worth pointing out that like no children have died because of this, so we're allowed to joke about it. If children had died, we would not be joking about it quite as much.
They've sold 17,500 things, and 1 injury's been reported.
Yeah.
Right, that's literally less than 0.01% of their amount of people. So
I've no doubt more injuries have probably occurred not with the accelerator pedal than with it.
Yeah.
I mean, you see footage all the time of kids in these things, riding over their siblings and, going up against a tree or a fence and they flip the thing. So
they go downhill and they don't understand the concept of the accelerator and braking system, and it's just like full 100% accelerator.
Alrighty. More toys. Keep talking about toys. So there's 2 new Animal Crossing Lego sets have been announced. So one of them is a little
teased.
Well, yeah. I mean, we know that they exist. So
when he introduced this in the intro, I thought you said there was a new Animal Crossing logo, and I was like, "What is there? Why would they do that?" Then I realized you said Lego.
Yeah, so 2 new Animal Crossing Lego sets. One of them is a town hall set, which comes with KK Slider. He sings in the trailer, but they have a disclaimer that he doesn't sing in the actual Lego, which is very disappointing. They have the technology, like they have the little electronic Lego Mario that like plays sounds and stuff. They could give us a KK Slider, but they've chosen not to, which is just unacceptable, honestly.
I need those
how
old school
horrifying
toys.
that would be.
Remember those old school toys where you had like the tiny little plastic record discs and you put them in the back of the toy and they played the song? We need that, but for KK Slider.
Exactly. Yeah, the other one is a Dodo Airlines set, which comes with a little plane and Wilbur, but not Orville. Orville isn't allowed.
Wow.
They just haven't
Because
included.
there's no interior to the building, and he just lives behind the counter.
Yeah.
Can obviously we'll talk about it in a moment, but I'm just looking at the picture from the article, and it's got KK Slider there. It's a CGI render of him, obviously. But can we just talk about the fact that he's got a hole in the top of his head?
Yeah, I mean that's where you put his hat on, obviously. All Lego people have holes in the tops of their heads.
I don't know. It just looks weird. If the hat was there, it'd be fine. But without a hat, just having a hole in the top of the head looks just really weird.
Yeah.
I gotta say, I'm not into like Lego. I'm not into Lego. Not that I hate it. It's just not like one of my things that I enjoy. But goddamn, Animal Crossing is just like the perfect Lego like crossover. It's so cool.
Yeah. I mean, I think like the biggest issue with this like Animal Crossing Lego is that like they just massively missed the boat on it. Like, can you imagine if like late 2020 the first Animal Crossing Lego set had come out?
Yeah.
Like, it just would have been huge. But yeah, they kind of missed the boat on it. People don't really care quite as much, and as a result, it's coming out like very slowly. Like these sets aren't coming until August. I think the last ones came out in February.
I mean, I feel like that's a general indictment of Nintendo and Animal Crossing in general. They just keep on missing the boat on that entire series.
Yeah. The first sets came out in March.
In March. There we go.
Yeah, like March 1st.
Like, I don't believe the game has sold so many goddamn copies, but like has received just the most mediocre support compared to like the amount of like copies
it's
sold.
not that. It's unless you live in Japan, you get nothing Animal Crossing. Japan gets everything Animal Crossing. It's only now that we're starting to see more Animal Crossing stuff leave Japan. Lego obviously being the exception, but in Japan they got shit for years, and it's one of those.
Not in the
weird
game,
things
they
where-
didn't.
No, not in the game. I will say though too, like Lego aren't traditionally very fast movers in terms of their designs of things, which is kind of stupid because, like, the Bowser's airship that they did for the Mario thing, right? That was cool because it sort of opened up, right? Stuff like that I can understand taking a while, but buildings like houses, oh yeah, Lego hasn't done a house before. How the hell does it take 3 years to design a Lego house? It's just some of this stuff is weird. And the thing is, looking at what set did Lego send me? It's behind me. The birthday party one, Isabel's party, whatever it is. There's only 2 or 3 actual new pieces of Lego that they made for that set, and one of them's like rounded windows. It's like, okay, it's not exactly a hard piece to make, so they've done a lot in with the Mario stuff with original pieces, but the bulk of the sets are still just standard Lego bricks, so it shouldn't take
I would
too long to
suspect
get things
that
down.
part of the reason that designing these things takes so long is because Nintendo. So I'm pretty sure like Lego engineers would be like, hey, look at this set that we've come up with for Animal Crossing, and Nintendo would be like, no, change everything. Which, you know, Nintendo is very, very strict about its licensing things because they've been burned in the past with all sorts of things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it looks good.
I suspect there'll probably be another 3
the-
or 4 sets announced alongside this when it's formally announced, which should be in the next week or so. And especially because they're due August 1, there's generally about a 6 to 8 week lead time on Lego, like a formal reveal. So if that's the case, we should see some information soon. But I don't think we're ever going to get anything big or fancy. I think it's just going to be more of these little sets that you could use to build a little, you know, Animal Crossing town, which is fine.
I just watched the video on Twitter, and obviously you said that they had a little disclaimer that it doesn't sing, but they also mentioned that it doesn't move.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that was really required, but okay.
Yeah, it's a very funny disclaimer. But yeah.
Yeah, but the video also came out of America, and they're the people that had to say caution hot coffee when, you know, on a cup of hot coffee. So, you know.
Anyway, that's probably enough about toys for the moment. So there's just so much more to get through. So more Nintendo Switch Online stuff. So 2 Nintendo 64 games were added to the Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack. Extreme G and Iggy's Wrecking Balls. What titles they are. So both of these were published.
I'd never heard of that second one before, so I have to say that I'd never heard of that before.
Both of these were published by Acclaim, which means that we could get more Acclaim games in the future, maybe. There were a lot of Acclaim titles in the era. So
I suspect the ones people want is Turok, but that won't happen. So
no, unfortunately not. But you know, it is, you know, these are 2 actually quite good games. I don't know if anyone played them when they came to NSO, but I checked them both out, and they're both really, really solid games. A lot of fun. And I think this is one of those points where, like, in terms of like virtual console, like this would not be viable because nobody would buy them.
Yeah.
This is like why I think Nintendo Switch Online as a subscription service is like more valuable for the most part than virtual console was, because like I saw a whole bunch of people being like, I've never even heard of these games when they were announced, but then like afterwards, you know, the next day people were like, oh, I checked out Extreme G and it's actually really good. But like if you had to pay like $13 to test that out, like most people wouldn't. It's just not going to happen. So putting it like behind a subscription, obviously there are like issues with like digital ownership and stuff, but for the most part, like this is getting good games to people who otherwise wouldn't have tried them, and like that just would not happen with virtual console. There would be no incentive for like whoever owns these titles to like license them to Nintendo for virtual console, because nobody would buy them. It just would not be worth it.
I'm just looking at my shelf of N64 games, and Extreme G is sitting up there. It also got a sequel on GameCube called Extreme G 3 or something. So some weird name. Yeah, look, honestly, I'm really out of frame at the moment.
yeah, I was about to say you're pushing the limits of the NVIDIA framing software.
What really surprised me about these coming to it is the fact that they came to it. Like, so Throwback LLC or Throwback whatever the hell they're called, they're the folks that own all the Acclaim properties. So Turok isn't an Acclaim property; it's a license that Acclaim got, which is why Night Dive Studios did the remakes of them or the remasters. Same with Shadow Man. Shadow Man is a licensed comic series, and Night Dive did that as well. But you know, Extreme G was their own thing. Armor Marines, which is, you know, basically Helldivers but from the Nintendo 64 era, that is a comic series as well. That wasn't an Acclaim original. So that's unlikely to come across. But for all the ones that Acclaim have, like they have a bunch of stuff on GameCube. Not obviously we're not getting GameCube, but there's a whole bunch of stuff that they made for 64 and GameCube that could probably make the jump at some point, because they made a shit ton of games. Like they'd made the South Park games on the 64. Like not that that's something to rave about, but that was them. So just seeing them appear out of nowhere is kind of insane.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly a lot of them. So much. Wow, I just saw. I mean, obviously this isn't Nintendo 64, but the Crow's City of Angels. I forgot that game even existed. What game that was?
It's a PS1 game, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And Sega Saturn. But yeah, I mean, like they were mostly well known for like their sports titles, but they had a whole bunch of stuff outside of that was really interesting. So it would be nice if
they did a lot of WWE or WWF, I think it was back in the day.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I think the fact that it's just, not that it's these games, but it's the fact that it's this developer that's been out of business for 15 years plus. The fact that they've just come back out of nowhere, it's kind of like, okay, is that because Throwback, who the people who own all this shit, came to Nintendo and said, hey, we've got these games, we'd like to put them on there? Or did Nintendo go out and say, hey, we've got this service, can we release these games you own? And if it's that second one, when Nintendo's reaching out to other people, it sort of opens up the door to a whole lot more, more titles than we possibly had before.
Well, as we know, Nintendo has like a lot of the original submitted cartridges, but certainly all of the ROMs for any game that has appeared on any of its platforms. Like it has a huge archive of everything that was ever submitted to it. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that like even wasn't released but was finished that we could see. But yeah, I mean, like in terms of Acclaim stuff, I would love to see Revolt. Revolt is a wonderful, terrible game.
Revolt rules.
Yeah, like the thing is, like it's not a perfect game by any means. It's like a real jank, and like sometimes just doesn't really work super well. But God, it's fun, and you just like all of the jank that exists in it is like worth for everything else you get. But yeah, Revolt would be super fun. But yeah, we'll see, I guess. Hopefully they do continue to release games. I think they had a whole bunch of like Game Boy games as well. But I think most of those were
a ton of Game Boy games. Like a lot of Game Boy games.
Yeah. So yeah, hopefully we see some of those as well. Looking at the list, it does seem like most of them are licensed.
Yeah.
But, if they want to put Mary Kate and Ashley Pocket Planner on Nintendo Switch Online, I mean, go for it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
That's an option. Why not?
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, as I said, like it's a good thing that like we're getting games that like people otherwise wouldn't check out, because I think those are the more interesting ones.
Yeah.
Compared to like oh, it's another Donkey Kong. As much as we would all love Donkey Kong 64 on the service, but
I'm just again surprised that we got them at all, because the company that made them has been out of business for almost 2 decades. So that's the part that really surprised me.
All right, so let's move on to some modern games. Yay! So there was a big Indie World showcase shortly after we recorded our last episode. A bunch of announcements in there, including a new game from Simogo, which is the company that made Sayonara Wild Hearts. This is called Lorelei and the something.
Lorelei and the Laser Eyes. It wasn't announced then. It was dated then. So we've known about it for a year or so, but it finally got a release date.
We had like a brief teaser for it previously, but this is the first like good look that we've gotten at it, and yeah, it looks quite good. And that's from the developer of Sayonara Wild Hearts, which is like one of my favorite games, so very excited about that. There's the next pirate-themed Cat Quest in what is it, Cat Quest 3. Which looks quite good.
Legend of the Caribbean or something like that.
Yeah. And SteamWorld Heist 2, which is coming this August. Looks quite good, also pirate-themed. But looks like an absolute blast. Yeah, so do we have any... I don't know if everybody's actually watched the Indie World or at least looked at all the announcements. But
I mean, I have, but it's kind of my thing.
Are there any picks in here that we think is particularly interesting, or we want to particularly highlight? Because for me, there's a game called Stitch, the little puzzle game that was previously on Apple Arcade, now on Switch, and kind of like a puzzle game that's a little bit like Picrossy, a little bit like Pixel Lines, which I've talked about previously, but that's out already, and it's super cute and a hell of a lot of fun. So big fan of that. But there was so much stuff that looked just really nice.
I think that Refined Self game looks pretty interesting. That this is the personality test game. It just looks intriguing. Like, I really want to see what it's like.
Yeah, and there was Anton Blast as well, that game that has the wild graphics, kind of like the pizza game. The hell?
Yeah, I was about to say, is this made by the same guys that made Pizza Time?
I don't think so.
It looks so similar.
I think
it's crazy.
They talked about it or something.
The moment that I saw Anton Blast, the game that leapt to mind for me was WarioWare or the Shake Dimension.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's not the same art style or anything, but it's got like that cartoony visual. There's a lot of charging and running, which is what Wario does in those games. Obviously, this is a little more extreme, but that's when I saw this, that hit me. It's like, this is very much like a WarioWare style platformer.
Yeah, it's not made
Honestly,
by the Pizza Tower guys. The Pizza Tower studio is literally called Tour de Pizza. So.
Yeah, but I think I saw on Twitter that they like talked to the Pizza Tower people about like refining the art style and stuff. I can't remember, but like, I could just be bullshitting that. I've had like 4 hours sleep, so
I mean, like, I don't care. Like, the game looks sick. Yeah. It's just like, it just looks so similar. I was like, is this by the same team?
There is a demo out for that one on the Switch as well, so you can actually download the demo. The game's not out till November 12, which is kind of a weird, like, it's like a 6-month lead between the game being shown off and released. But there is a demo, so there's that.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of what else stood out for me at the time. I mean, Sticky Business is very funny. You get to create a whole bunch of stickers and then sell them, and it's like a sticker shop simulator.
There's that cat game,
also,
that little kitty big city, which is like Untitled Goose Game, but you're a cat, I guess.
Yeah. Which I think is out in a couple weeks, even a week. Less than a week.
I think it's out in a week.
A couple days.
May 9th.
May 9th, apparently. So 4 days from the time of recording.
And I hate to say it, but it is coming day one to Game Pass. So if you have Game Pass, it is there. So, I will say, so SteamWorld Heist 2, the moment I saw that, I pinged Brian, who's the head of Image Informed, the guys who make the SteamWorld games. And I'm like, dude, why didn't you tell me about this? Because we talk quite frequently. And I'm very excited for that one. But the other two that really caught my eye were Yars Rising, because that's an old Atari game getting a brand new entry like some 30, 40 years later, and it's Way Forward, who generally make good 2D side scrollers. And then the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, formerly Apple Arcade, roguelike, what's it called? Splintered Fate. Yeah. So that one looked really cool for me, because I'm like, I like the Turtles, their world. But some of the Turtle games lately haven't been that crash hot. Because it's not decent overall. And can we also talk about the fact that this is the second Turtle game to be announced for Switch in like a week, because the formerly arcade, not Apple Arcade, but actual physical arcade game also got announced, and there's nothing out now on Switch. So
I can't believe, like, in regards to like TMNT in particular, like they've done absolutely like nothing to capitalize on the very successful Mutant Mayhem film. Like, there should be a tie-in game for that, like, now.
I'm certain there's an arcade game for that one. I know I saw something.
But no, it's not. This Splintered Fate I'm very excited for, because the designs look very similar to the TMNT 2003 animated series, which, as we all know, is the best TMNT version that has ever existed.
No, so it's an Outright Games game. It was announced last year.
Right.
So that's the one. When you said that, I'm like, yeah. Mutant Mayhem was very, very good. I did enjoy that. But yeah, the other one that I thought was funny was Europa. That's basically like if Studio Ghibli made a game. Like, visually, it's that sort of style. It's a very chill one. There's a demo out for PC, but it was supposed to have released on PC like 2 weeks before the Indie World, and then they delayed it to an unspecified time later in the year. So it is meant to be coming to other consoles, but Switch is the only one that's been confirmed. So
and there's a demo out for that on Switch as well, and I think it runs quite well from what people are saying.
Yeah, it runs really well on Switch.
So yeah, gorgeous looking sort of environmental platformer. Yeah, I mean, like, there's nothing like huge in this. Like, SteamWorld Heist is like big for a lot of people. You know, we saw another Crab's Treasure in there, which, you know, has come out and been a wonderful game. But yeah, nothing like super huge in there. But just like a really solid bunch of good indie games. I don't think there's anything in there.
The best name in this indie world was Duck Detective: The Secret Salami.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what the game's about. The visual style is kind of basic for me, but I just that name alone makes me want to see what it's about.
Yeah. Well, I don't think that there was like basically nothing in the entire like showcase that I wouldn't play. Everything there like appealed to me in one way or another. Which is
the only one that I would be cautious on is Valley Peaks. So is it a little hike? I think it's called. The little short one. Yeah, short hike. I'm playing the trailer now for Valley Peaks in video for folks watching that. But the visuals on that one just seem hurtful to my eyes for some reason. Not the design of anything, but like the texture effects and everything. It just looks quite.
I feel like it benefits from being on like a small handheld screen, rather like if I was playing that on my 65-inch OLED TV, like it would probably just like give me an instant headache. But like on like a 6-inch screen on my Switch, like I could probably deal with that. It seems
that's
really
like the only one I'd be cautious on myself. Other than that, everything else looks great.
Yeah, all of it is just lovely stuff, and I'm super keen for Lorelei and the Laser Eyes, because Samograt makes wonderful games, and this looks incredible. And one of my coworkers played a version of the PC release and absolutely loved it. So
the fact that it also evokes a little bit of old school Resident Evil is always welcome.
Yeah. I mean, like, you don't see these kinds of like, puzzly adventure games like this all that much anymore. So, it's good to see stuff like that, where it's kind of like point and clicky, but also Resident Evil-y. One notable omission from the Indie World Showcase, which everybody expected would be there, given all of the recent stuff that's happened with it, is Hollow Knight Silksong. So yeah, Hollow Knight Silksong was not there, but It has been rated in Australia, so it officially has a PG rating. I believe it's PG.
It is PG.
I'll double check that.
Yeah, PG. Well, the story says PG, so we'll just go with PG.
Yeah, so Hollow Knight Silksong has been rated in Australia, where it was submitted to the Australian Classification Board via IARC, which is the International Age Rating Coalition. It's essentially like if you're releasing a digital-only game, you can submit to, I think it's like 15 different countries or 15 different regions classification boards without having to pay anything for it. So it's a massive boon for indies because otherwise, like, you know, just Australia alone, it costs a couple $1,000s to initiate the process, and if there's back and forth and things need to change, then you have to pay thousands more. So yeah, IARC is a really good thing, but
it benefits those countries as well because like the flood of rating indie games in every market is just wild. It would just an absolutely insane amount of time. So
well, see, that's the thing, right? So
amazing.
like we're at the point where like we're getting like 60 games like a day releasing across like just Steam, or more. You know, it's not uncommon for 150 games to come out on a given day. And like previously, all of those had to be manually submitted for classification, which is just an absurd requirement. Now you can just do it through IARC. You fill out a questionnaire and declare it, and you know, for the most part, somebody will look over that and be like, "Yep, this checks out." There have been some issues with IARC in the past, especially given. Shut up, Leak. Yeah, especially given, you know, the way that IARC classifies things, like, you know, mild drug use would be 13 plus for IARC, when then it gets like a PG or an M rating here, and then the ACB is like no drugs, so then it gets an R rated or even refused classification, which, you know, what can you do? Anyway, Hollow Knight. Silksong has been rated in Australia. It's the second confirmed classification for the game. The other one was in Korea, which notably is an IARC proponent as well. So, yeah.
Korea is also unfortunately a hotbed of leaks. We tend to get a lot of heads up on games that we've never heard of because Korea's had them rated and made public.
Yeah. So the game does appear to have been classified in other regions too, as basically all of the Xbox supported countries have a classification listed, and in some of those countries it's illegal to list something without an actual classification. Like you can't say like, oh yeah, this is an M-rated game if it hasn't actually been rated M. So yeah, and Xbox made like a big stink about like how, oh, you know, there's a store page for it now, wink wink. So yeah, I think it's definitely probably been classified through IARC for all of the IARC regions and probably a few more places as well. Which means, you know, at this point we're just waiting for it to release.
I'm just gonna say I'm so sick of hearing about this game.
Me too, and I'm
just
actually like
fucking
excited for it.
Like I'm not excited for it. Like it's gonna be a good game, I assume. I don't know if it's gonna live up to the hype. I think people have put it on an insanely an insane pedestal at this point. But like, goddamn, just fucking release it. Like, it's insane the amount of time this has been delayed and like teased for. It's nuts.
Yeah. I mean, like, I understand that, like, you know, a lot of the development was like put on pause because of COVID, and like that's fine. But then, like, after that, Team Cherry just decided to like wheel it out once a year and like tease it, and then nothing happened.
One of the biggest slaps in the face about all this is that it popped up at the Xbox thing, you know, almost 2 years ago, and Phil Spencer made the big claim that everything in this everything in this showcase will be out within 12 months. And Hollow Knight was in there, and people went, "Oh, finally, we've got a window." And then the next time we hear it was like 9 months later. They're like, "Yeah, we need more time," and there's been nothing since. It's like I'm happy for them to take all the time they want, but it's like if you're not ready for your game to be released, just shut up and just work on it, and don't start promoting it elsewhere if it's nowhere near ready, which is clearly what happened.
That's the thing that we do. Like, Nintendo does runs a really tight ship around that, and that like for the most part they will not advertise a game until it's either complete or is like a mega game like a Zelda. So like Tears of the Kingdom, like we saw quite early. But like for the most part, Nintendo games, when we see them for the first time, they're largely complete, maybe in the polishing stage, and they'll release in 3 months. I think a lot of other developers need to start taking that example and doing it themselves. And I understand that like that's difficult for smaller developers in particular, because they need to be able to advertise it to get funding and grants and stuff like that. So that's fine. But like, yeah, I think it's basically impossible at this point for Silksong to live up to the hype that's been created for it.
That game's not on a pedestal. It's at the top of the Burj Khalifa at this point.
Yeah.
I will say too, like because I did a thing for Star Wars Day with the games in development, for the Star Wars games in development, and there were 2 games announced in 2021. One's the Eclipse game from Quantic Dream, and the other is from Amy Hennig's team, who are doing the Marvel 1943 Rise of Hydra, Captain America Black Panther game. Those 2 Star Wars games have been announced now for over 3 years, and in that time, the announcement is all we've ever gotten. And it's like, okay, I get you wanted to build hype, but announcing a game and then 3 years later still not talking about your game is the wrong way to go about it.
That's Disney for you, though.
It's not Disney though. It's the developers doing it, because they do it all the time. The games get announced to try and generate hype, and then have people pay attention to it. And EA is unfortunately king of that bullshit practice. Like they did, and I'm not ragging on the team, but Codemasters with their F1, they literally announced it in February that it's coming in May, and then like check back in April where we'll start talking about the game. And now they're doing like weekly drops of information on the game to try and build hype. And it's like, it's an F1 game. People are either on board already or they're not. Nothing you say is going to change people's minds. But they want people to pay attention to the hype more than anything else. And it just doesn't make sense to me.
I mean, like, it's one of those things where it's like a lot of these companies like carefully crafted their marketing strategy to get as much like media coverage as possible. So like it's something that we see a lot, is that like we'll have like an announcement there's an announcement coming up, and then like often it'll be like, oh, media will report on something like 3 times or 4 times, or it'll be like, oh, Xbox has said that there's big news coming next week, and then like the next week the media will report, oh, Xbox is having a big showcase next week, and then after that it'll be like, oh yeah, Xbox is releasing a new game. And it's like, I understand why they do it, and like the media falls for it every single time. I'm like part of that too. I work in the media and I report on those things because people click on those things.
It's like when a movie studio goes, the trailer for whatever movie it is starts in 3, 2. It's like, yeah, I'm fucking watching the trailer. You don't need to tell me the trailer's about to start.
The pre-trailer teaser trailer is the worst thing that Hollywood's come up with in a long time. It's just awful.
I honestly like. I know why they do it, but I don't think it's achieving the thing that they think it is. Like the reason that they do that is because, like, if you're scrolling past it on social media, you see like a big burst of activity beforehand.
And on social media that's fine, but attached to the actual trailer, no.
Attached to the actual trailer, it's very dumb. But yeah, they'll do that for like TikTok or whatever, or like even like the YouTube previews where like they'll just like start showing bursts of stuff, and it's like nobody cares. Like if somebody is interested in that film, they will click on the trailer regardless.
I also love the whole the when they get the celebrities in front of a generic background, and you hear somebody shout, like it's like, no, shut up. But you made mention about marketing campaigns, and I remember seeing Vook share Aaron Greenberg's tweet like yesterday about how they've got a big campaign for Hellblade 2, and I'm like, that game's out in like 20 days. It's a bit late to start your marketing campaign.
Yeah. I mean, like, they I don't know. There's like, with the recent Transformers movie, the animated one, there was like a thing there where they sent it to space, which, by the way, it wasn't actually sent to space. I want to point that out because they're like, PR and stuff said like, oh, it's going to space, but like we did the math and it's not actually in space. Like It's like the upper stratosphere.
Oh
All
my
people
god,
agree that
that's
it's not in
the
space.
best fucking sentence. The PR said they sent it to space, but we did the maths.
Yeah,
That's
so it
beautiful.
wasn't actually in space, and then like they showed the trailer, quote, in space. But before that, they had like, oh, here's, a short message from Chris Hemsworth and somebody else, I can't remember who.
Brian Tyler something or other.
Yeah, and like I don't, if I'm like watching this event where like they're sending a trailer not to space so I can watch it, and have watched this hour-long trip up to not space. Like I don't really care what Chris Hemsworth has to say about the trailer. I just want to see the trailer.
I mean, if they sent Chris Hemsworth up to not space to then talk about the movie, you'd be
Yeah,
like, okay, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, he can say whatever he wants about the movie if they're doing that. But no, they just sent a probe up that had a screen attached to it. Anyway, this is wildly off topic. Silksong is probably coming out soon, and it won't be as exciting as everybody thinks it is. I've played a version of it back at PAX 2019, and it was very good.
2019, Jesus Christ.
I know. And the people on the floor there, because this is on the Nintendo booth, they were like, "Oh yeah, the Silksong is like basically almost done. It's just in the polishing phase." And like here we are, like 5 years later, and it's still not even out. But yeah, I mean, it was a lot of fun. Yeah, I don't think like there was nothing in the game that makes me think, "Wow, this is going to be significantly better than Hollow Knight." I think it's just like the level of goodness that Hollow Knight has, but another one. And I think that's what people should be going into it thinking, because like I'm sure they've definitely done everything they can to make it the best game possible, but like no game is in development for 6, 7, 8 years without.
It was officially announced in February 2019 to be a standalone, but we knew it was coming out like a month before the game officially launched because it was a stretch goal from their Kickstarter.
Yeah,
so it's been in development a long time.
Yeah, and like none of those games that are in development for that long, especially on the indie side, like release without having some sort of rough edges and points where developers have refined and over refined to the point of like beating the fun out of it, as we saw with like Sports Story, which had a very similar.
I was literally going to go Sports Story, cough.
Yeah. So yeah, but I mean, like again, it's an Australian developer. The people at Team Cherry are very, very lovely people. I know they've been working very, very hard on it, and I cannot wait to play it. But yeah, just like lower your expectations, because everybody like has been treating this as if it's like the second coming of Christ, and it is not. And yeah, give it a fair go. All right. One more news story, and then we'll get into the games that we're playing. So Nintendo Live is coming to Sydney. Who knew? So Nintendo Live is a 2-day festival. Well, our one will be 2-day. Previous ones have been 4 days. Celebrating all things Nintendo. It's usually a little bit more family focused. It's kind of like the Connection Tour if it was just in one place. If anybody remembers the Connection Tour. It's just like it's a connection place. Anyway, it's coming to Sydney. So we've previously had Nintendo Live events in the US and Japan. I don't think we've had any outside of the US and Japan, right?
This is only the fourth one. And sorry, the fourth one announced. It'll be the third one that goes ahead, because the last one was supposed to take place in January in Tokyo, and it got cancelled. And yeah, so this is the first time Nintendo's ever done anything big in Australia. Period. It wasn't a global thing.
We don't know how big it's going to be just yet, but previous Nintendo, like, because they haven't given us any details. Like the website is just like, check back in later for more news.
We know the city and the dates. That's it.
Yeah. So yeah, previous Nintendo Live events have had like concerts and all sorts of Nintendo stuff. But yeah, this is the first time that like Nintendo Australia has really gotten to do something big like this. Apart from the Connection Tour back in 2006.
I mean, the other thing too is Nintendo obviously they've attended PAX almost every year. They didn't attend it a couple of years ago. So this is not like their first time ever doing something big, but this is the first time they've ever done their own thing, which I think is a big deal for them.
Yeah, so Nintendo Live Sydney is going to take place in late August / early September. I think it's the 31st of August and the 1st of September.
Yeah.
Do we think we'll be going? Michael, you would have the longest way to travel.
No.
Are you going to go to Nintendo? No? Of course.
Even if they announced Switch 2 there, I would still not go.
What if it's Switch 2 and Overwatch 3?
Oh, definitely not. You're making it worse.
I mean, I will go if I can get confirmation of a ticket without that lottery system that they've used elsewhere. Because that's the biggest hurdle is is it worth booking a hotel and hoping you get a ticket and then having to deal with canceling a hotel if you miss out, or is it worth getting a ticket and then trying to find a hotel, which it's not the smoothest way. And I also have to, I said this before the show, but I have to point out the fact that Nintendo's the only game company not based in Sydney. They're based in Melbourne and they're hosting their event in Sydney and not Melbourne. So everyone who works for Nintendo who will be manning this thing has to fly up to Sydney for it rather than them just hosting it in Melbourne where they all live locally anyway. It's just a stupid thing.
Maybe it's a frequent flyer points scam.
Nintendo's just trying to rack up the corporate frequent flyer points.
Maybe they just got more direct flights from Kyoto to Sydney than they did Kyoto to Melbourne.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I mean, I probably won't go. It depends. I don't know. I'm going to Japan in July. So like the thought of going to Sydney like a few weeks later is like, well, it's not quite as exciting, is it?
Like those types of events, like and cons and stuff like that, it just isn't for me. Like I can't imagine what there would possibly be there that I would need to see in person. Like I just no.
What if you could meet KK Slider? Would that change your mind?
Is it the real KK Slider?
Yeah,
does he move? Does he sing?
Singing dog.
My thing with these events is if there's something that I can justify the cost for, and I will be honest here, I'll be very transparent. Like I was at DreamHack a few weeks ago. I've gone to every PAX. I've gone to Supernovas. I've gone to E3, and all those times I've never paid for tickets to get in. I think the only time I've ever paid for a ticket to get into a show is never. I've never actually paid for a ticket. And a lot of that comes down to, what I do. And I'm very, very thankful for that. But I still have to pay for flights to places and hotels and, transport and food and drink and all the bits and pieces that go along with it. And if I look at a lineup of an event and I can't justify that cost, then I don't. Because it's like, and it'd be the same for you guys. If you're looking to go here and you get the ticket for free, cool. I mean, Nintendo Live tickets don't cost anything. It's always done on a lottery anyway. But if you're having to pay $400 or $500 on flights and then $400 or $500 for a couple of nights hotels and transfers and all the bits and pieces, like for an hour and a half of gaming and maybe one concert, is it worth $1,000?
No. Unless it's the Squid Sisters, in which case I'll probably go. If the
Squid Sisters and Switch 2.
Yeah.
But even if Switch 2 was there, it won't be there because that would be a fucking security nightmare. Second of all, it would just be a bajillion people stabbing each other to see it. I can't imagine anything worse, to be honest.
The Xbox One at PAX 2013, when they had a non-functional console that they just kept taking in and out of the display case all day.
I was there and I never saw it. Every time I was there, it was empty. So
I saw it once, and that was because I was doing a media thing. But yeah, every time I walked past the booth, it was just the empty box. So yeah, I'm happy that this is happening. But I need more details to get too excited, because just saying something's happening is not the same as saying it's happening and this is why you should care.
It's a fun event. Like you said, it's going to be free. It's in Sydney. If you're living in Sydney and you want to go and you can get tickets, go for it. But I don't think it's a thing that's necessarily worthy of travel per se.
Yeah.
Alrighty, let's move on to the games that we're playing. So I'll go first because mine is fairly short. I've been playing. Well, I finished and reviewed Tales of Kanzera Zhao, which is a lovely Metroidvania, 2D Metroidvania from Certain Studios, which is a studio that was set up by Abubakar Salim, which is the voice actor for Bayek in Assassin's Creed Origins. He's also been
You just
in a bunch
said
of other stuff.
so many words that I'm like, okay.
Sorry, I've spoken to him like twice in the past like 2 weeks. He's a very, very lovely dude.
Yeah, he is.
But
He's also
yeah,
set to star in the upcoming season of House of the Dragon. He's in that
he
as
is.
well.
Which he actually told us, just like fun little thing. He was like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna like, you know, go out and record a whole bunch of stuff in like, you know, the wilds of Scotland and stuff." And then it was just like some town in the UK, just like some town in England that was like, you know, 20 minutes from his house. So
Seems about right for a production.
yeah. But yeah, it's a lovely game about. I mean, I say lovely. It's like it's a haunting game. Like it's a bit difficult to actually deal with because it's all about, you know, the loss of his father and like coming to grips with that, which, you know, heavy topic, but it's handled really, really well, and it has a whole bunch of like African culture in it that is really sweet and sensitively handled. So
And
yeah,
it's a fantastic Metroidvania to boot.
it is. You start with a double jump, which is always a good sign.
Yep.
You get a double jump, a dash, and an air dash. So yeah, really, really good stuff. And the combat is like super fun because like you have a ranged attacking mode and then a melee attacking mode, and the further you get through, the more it is like that you can sort of switch between them on the fly and combo together each of the abilities and stuff. It's really, really good. There's probably other things that I've played that I'm forgetting. I play so much these days that it's all just a blur. So Stitch is the only other thing that I can remember. Oh yeah, I also played Aiden Chronicle 100 Heroes on Switch, and don't play it on Switch. It is a hot fucking mess. It runs at like 15 frames a second at the top end. I saw it hit 30 frames a second once, and that was because it was in like a tiny little room. And if you want to know how taxing this is the first game I've ever played on Switch where it's so taxing that sometimes when there's too much happening on the screen, the system cannot afford the resources to take a screenshot using the inbuilt like system screenshot function. So yeah, it is just bad on Switch, and I had multiple crashes. At one point it updated and I lost like 12 hours of gameplay because my save file was just not there. So yeah, they say that they're gonna, you know, start fixing it, but it should not have been sold in this state. So yeah, don't play Eden Chronicle 100 Heroes on Switch. Just don't do it. It's fine on other platforms. It's best on
Is it
PC.
in Game Pass? Wasn't it a day
It is
one
on
release in
Game
Game
Pass.
Pass?
Yeah. So if you want to play on PC or on Xbox, just play it through Game Pass. But yeah, absolutely disgusting condition on Switch, and it should not have released. Or, you know, if they got it to that point, I'm like, you know, this is just never going to work on Switch. That's what they should have gone with. And it's a shame because like it's an art style that is not particularly intensive, and we have dozens of other games that have an almost identical art style that run perfectly fine on Switch. So they just have not put in the work to optimize it and polish it to the point where it is a playable game. So yeah. Michael, what have you been playing?
I've been playing Hell Let Loose still, which is fun. Good co-op with co-op. We're just playing with mates, which is awesome. But I got a Steam Deck recently, so I've been using that as my indie PC games machine. So I've played through Donut County, which was super cool, very fun little game there. Great comedy. And I played through Creeks, which is a I guess like a puzzle game from the guys who made Machinarium, which is just awesome. Absolutely awesome. If you enjoy puzzle games, This game is sick. I can highly recommend it. Really, really cool.
Yeah. I just want to mention another thing that I did play was the closed beta of an upcoming PC game called Mecha Break, which is essentially like Overwatch, but you're in a gigantic Gundam mech. Just an absolute blast. It's coming from a Chinese developer, and yeah, they had the closed beta, and it was so much fun. I got my ass handed to me so many times, but you know, that's how it is in competitive games, you know. They also will, I think, at some point have a battle royale mode, which I'm less interested in, but like, you know, the usual like capture the points and all of that is a lot of fun. So yeah. Luke, what have you been playing?
I mean, I started playing Endless Ocean for review the other day, and so you know when you're playing games and it's just it's nothing happening to it, nothing exciting. You sort of just like playing it and you feel like you're falling asleep. The moment I started playing Endless Ocean 3, I got about 20 minutes in and I started like dozing off. So I stopped and I picked up a book and read 2 chapters of the book. And by the time I was finished reading those 2 chapters, I was alert again. So I went back to the game and I started dozing off almost instantaneously. That game is literally putting me to sleep as I'm trying to play it. So, you know, yay. Geez, it's been a month. I started God of War 3 on stream because I finished off God of War 2. I played some Lego Star Wars last night on stream for Star Wars Day. I've played Hades 2 in the technical alpha recently. I've got what's the other one? The Rogue Prince of Persia. I've been playing that one, and Test Drive Unlimited in Hong Kong, whatever the hell they call that one, Solar Crown. So I've been playing those things. Those last 3 are all like NDA'd that, you know, I'm not supposed to talk about, but who cares? I've played them, that's fine. But yeah, look, I'm not talking about the
Who
games.
cares about non-disclosure agreements? We're gonna disclose the shit out of everything.
I'm just saying that I have played them. I'm not talking about the content. But yeah, I've just been playing through stuff for review. I did oh god, what was the other one I did? Sandland. The Akira Toriyama, you know,
the game
he
based
did
on
like
that manga.
Yeah, he did like 6 chapters of a manga 20 years ago, and Bandai were like, we can make an RPG out of that. So he made a whole second chapter, a whole second saga, and the story, you know, the whole thing's about trying to find this giant you know, hidden oasis in a giant desert. And I'm thinking that's going to take, you know, 20-30 hours to get through. No, 4 hours in, I found the goddamn oasis. Then the story pivoted to another thing. After 2 hours, it pivoted to another thing. And then after that main story, which is the original manga finished, it pivoted to the entire second thing. The story was just all over the place. But I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a great little game. So
it's basically just like Mad Max Fury Road, but with Akira Toriyama in it. Even down to like the wacky like combat vehicles.
The only thing that's really, really annoyed me about it, and I know somebody will have a go at me, but everything just looks like Dragon Ball. And I know he's the creator of Dragon Ball. It's like, yeah, cool. But he's also the artist for Dragon Quest and Chrono Trigger. And none of the characters or designs in those games look like Dragon Ball. They've got similar eye shapes on characters. No. So there's a guy who floats around in a giant sphere, like a giant bubble in Sandland, right? And he's got his hands out the front and like T-Rex, and he's got his head out, and that's it. And I look at that, and all I see is the Frieza ball, right? Because it looks identical. And there's an enemy that he drops down in a fight, and he calls them the Bugmen, and it's literally Cell before he evolves. It's like the second evolution of Cell, and that's all it is. I'm like, it's the same color scheme, the same, you know, everything looks like it. And I'm like, okay, I get that he did this as a once-off 20 years ago, but it's like, they could have done something to, you know, refine things a little more. Because it literally just looks like he just took some, you know, unused Dragon Ball characters and threw them in his story and called it a day.
Look at Luke here. Luke, all anime looks the same. Henderson strikes again.
I mean, it's done by the same person, sure.
Toriyama is like quite well known for like having 3 hairstyles that he can draw and 1 woman, which, you know, God bless him. He found what worked for him, and he made it work, right? Like he built a gigantic career out of like the one thing that he wanted to draw, which was like weird little aliens and like 3 different people that are just recycled across everything he's ever done. So, yeah, what an icon. Yeah. Let's move on to Nintendo 20 questions. So Michael, you are
the question lord,
answer holder, the question lord, the host of Jeopardy.
I'm ready to go.
Quizmaster also works.
I double checked the list. We supposedly haven't done this game. I guess I'll find out.
The list is not frequently updated, so there's a 50-50 on that.
If it's the Google Docs one, I haven't updated that in a bit, but if it's the Excel one, I update that frequently. So,
according to
whichever
the Google
one
Docs
is in the document.
Yeah,
okay.
the Google
That's
Docs
probably
one
like
actually has
1 or
been
2 episodes out of date
updated.
then.
Okay.
No, it's fully up to date. Last one was Apex Legends, so I don't know who did that, but somebody
Some
did.
nerd.
It's probably the same idiot who edits all this stuff.
All right.
I'm ready to go.
Was this game released on or after January 1st, 2000?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Was this game released on or after January 1st, 2010?
It was not.
See. Was this game released on a handheld console?
Game was released on a handheld console.
Okay, so we're talking like late Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, early DS, or most DS really.
Yeah. All right. Was this game released on the DS?
No. It was not. So I had to think if it had been re-released on DS. I don't think it has.
All right. I think we should assume GBA, and
I would assume that.
And then we get everything wrong. Should be like a DSiWare game. Technically not DS. It's on a DSi.
Technically, yes, but was this game published by Nintendo?
This game was not published by Nintendo.
Was this game developed in Japan?
This game was developed in Japan.
My brain's gone to a game, but I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to keep it in my back pocket.
No, you have to. This is how it works.
True.
You make the early bullshit guess.
My brain went to Boktai straight away. Is the developer of this game still in business?
Let me do a quick Google. I'm pretty sure they are. I'll go yes. Yes, they definitely are. I don't know. Yes, of course. Yeah, John, yes, they are.
Is this game part of a series?
Yes, it is.
GBA series developed.
A lot of yeses here.
Yeah. Which is a good and a bad thing, because sometimes we rely on no's to rule out stuff, but
yeah. Does this game feature combat?
Game does feature combat.
It's unlikely to be a puzzle game of some description or a racing game.
Does this game have platforming elements?
Yeah, I would say it has platforming elements. Yep. You're halfway there.
I'm thinking Mega Man Zero vibes.
Does this game feature any easily recognizable characters?
Yes, most definitely.
So that kicks out things like Boktai, because gun to my head, I couldn't tell you who the main character is in that game. But Mega Man, sure.
Goku, right?
Yeah, Goku, 100%. Designed by this guy called Akira Toriyama. But the Castlevania games are very much the Simon Belmont, all that sort of stuff. They're very recognizable. That's what I was thinking with that question.
My thing is, right, like, is Zero a recognizable character in Mega Man Zero? He's recognizable as being from Mega Man, right?
That's what I would assume. Like, you would associate him with. Was this game developed by Capcom?
This game was not developed by Capcom.
So, a game with combat and platforming made in Japan for the GBA, with the developer still in business.
So how many questions do we have left?
You have 7 questions and a guess.
Yeah. Jesus. I was going to ask a clarifying thing about if it was published by Capcom, but it's probably not the best idea. Recognizable characters. Platforming elements. We have to assume it's a 2D game. Because, like...
Yeah.
There weren't that many 3D games. And also probably side-scrolling.
Yeah, I would assume side-scrolling as well.
I mean, what top-down games have platforming elements?
I couldn't think of any that would. Was this game developed by Square Enix?
This game was not developed by Square Enix.
So that knocks out all the Final Fantasies and all that sort of stuff, because there was a lot of them on GBA. Some Konami games on GBA.
They had so many.
Yeah.
So many. Is this a licensed game?
No, this is not a licensed game.
If it's a... Best way to phrase it. Because I want to think it's either an RPG or like just a standard platformer, like a side-scrolling platformer. There's only two things that sort of fit. But the recognizable characters thing is now throwing me.
It could still be Mega Man Zero. It can't be any of the other Mega Man games, but it can still be Mega Man Zero. Because that was developed by Inti Creates. We could go for the meta question, but I feel like all that would tell us is if it's Mega Man Zero.
I mean, I can't think of anything at the moment off the top of my head.
Is the series that this game is a part of still running today? Is it still getting new entries? Has it gotten an entry in the past 5 years?
Okay, that I need to Google. 1 second.
How dare you not have an encyclopedic knowledge of all games in existence at any given time?
In the past, how long?
5 years.
No.
What was Mega Man 11?
That's what I'm curious about. I feel like that was like 2010. No, 2020 rather.
I'm pretty sure that was Wii U. Like, it came out on the Wii U.
No. Maybe. And that really has not like ruled it out at all.
No.
We can ask if it was published by Capcom, and then that could like rule out once and for all.
I will clarify that it hasn't had a new game come out in the past 5 years.
I see.
Yeah.
So there could be like re-releases and enhanced ports and stuff.
Which is most of Capcom's library on Switch.
Yeah.
And even Konami's library on Switch is that. At least we know it's not like Contra 4 or whatever, because, you know, they just got a new entry. So. I can't think of a question that would narrow it down without pigeonholing it into Mega Man.
4 questions and a guess. I'll even give you a freebie because Angela's not here, as is tradition.
Sure. I think we should ask if it was published by Capcom, because like even if it's not developed, it could be published.
Yeah.
And like that either confirms that it's Mega Man Zero or completely rules out Mega Man Zero.
Go for it. I got nothing at the moment, so.
Okay, was this game published by Capcom?
This game was not published by Capcom.
Okay, I got nothing then.
I think now what it could possibly be. Okay, sorry, a simple question we probably should have asked ages ago. Was this game well received upon its release?
The game was well received when it was released.
I'm trying to think what it could be. So it's not nothing to do with Capcom. It's not published by Square. It's not published by Nintendo. We know it was developed in Japan, but we don't know if it was published in Japan. But I obviously can't think of any games that would have been developed in Japan but published by another company elsewhere.
I mean, I think we can assume that it probably had a Japanese publisher, and like the developer is way more interesting and useful than.
Was there any Yokai Watch stuff on GBA?
No, Yokai Watch started on the 3DS, so definitely not. I'm thinking like a treasure game, right? Like there was a Gunstar Heroes sequel on GBA. Like, is that a recognizable character? Probably not, right? Nobody knows who Gunstar Hero is.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't think treasure, because they don't honestly have any characters that you'd just be like, yeah, that's that character.
Yeah.
And most of the treasure stuff I think was generally published by Nintendo.
You have 2 questions, a bonus question, and a guess left.
Okay, 2 questions and a bonus question and a guess. I've got us as 3 questions and a guess without the bonus.
Unless I effed up, which is highly probable.
I mean, it could be me doing it as well.
Either or. I really don't care if you get extra questions, so it doesn't bother me.
Okay. So it's a...
You've not done the genre. You haven't got the developer or publisher.
Was this game published by Konami?
This game was published by Konami.
So, because I'm thinking Castlevania. It has to be one of the Castlevanias. Oh, hang on. There was a Beautiful Joe game. Was that... No, that was DS.
Say that that's recognizable in any case.
Yeah, that was DS anyway, so that doesn't count. Because their biggest series is Castlevania, and the last one they had for that was the Mirror of Fate, which was 2012.
What, Castlevania?
Yeah,
Yeah, there was like the mobile game after that.
yeah, but
Then
we
later
don't
became
count
an
mobile
Apple
games.
Arcade exclusive. It could definitely be Castlevania. There are a few Castlevania games on GBA. And the series is still running. It's recognizable. It features recognizable characters.
Yeah.
has platforming elements.
I'm just trying to think what else Konami might have. Like they had like Goemon and stuff, but they never released here. And they haven't had anything since then. They had some racing games, but they never released anywhere. They never did anything after that. But that was just bloated with Konami characters, so that wouldn't count. Oh,
I mean, they had a ton of Yu-Gi-Oh games, but
we know it's not licensed.
well, Konami makes Yu-Gi-Oh, so it's not really licensed so much as it is them doing a multimedia project.
Yeah.
I feel like Castlevania is like the main one. Like, can you think of any other Konami series?
I mean, the only other big Konami series is Metal Gear, but there was never a Metal Gear on GBA.
All right. Is this game?
It's a burn a question to ask if it's in Castlevania.
Is this game in the Castlevania series?
This game is in the Castlevania series.
Okay. That narrows it down to 3 games.
And I have no idea what any of them are called.
If it's going by my count, you have a guess left and a bonus question. So I don't know what this is at this moment. Or maybe 2 questions and a guess. I don't know anymore.
I'm just showing a question and a guess.
So. Okay, cool. Let's just go with that.
Is it Aria of Sorrow? Is that a Game Boy one, or is that?
Yeah, no. There's Aria of Sorrow, Circle of the Moon, and Harmony of Dissonance.
So I think to me, Aria of Sorrow is the one that I know, because I think that was like the first one or the really popular one of them.
Yeah, it wasn't the first one, but it is the best one.
Imagine getting this thinking. Late in the process and having multiple games to choose from. Such a shame.
Terrible.
Yeah, I would assume it has to be that. Like it has to be Aria of Sorrow, because the other 2 names I couldn't tell you. You've just told me what they are, and I just can't remember what they are. So, and we know it was well received.
Well, hold on a second, because I think Aria of Sorrow is the only one that's set in the future. Because Aria of Sorrow is set in like the 2030s. So we can ask if the game is set in the future, and that gives us Aria of Sorrow.
Is the game only a few years away from releasing?
Other than that, we have like, it's just like a toss-up between Circle of the Moon and like Harmony of Dissonance.
I could always ask if it's the only one that I know by name, because I don't know the other 2 by name, but I know Aria of Sorrow by name.
Either way, like, we could ask one question that is basically, is it Aria of Sorrow or not? And like, your question is exactly the same answers as my question. That's right. Is this game?
Hold on, wait. I will say, I feel like asking if it's a specific game is a guess. I'm just putting it out.
No. That's what I'm saying, right? It's like either way, like we're essentially just asking that without actually asking that. Is this game set in the future?
This game is not set in the future.
Okay, so it's a 50-50 between Circle of the Moon and Harmony of Dissonance.
Which is the one that came out first?
I believe it was Circle of the Moon. That had the dual setup system, which seems like the kind of thing that Michael would enjoy.
Oh, being so profile here.
I just go for that one, because I don't know anything about either of them. So
go Circle of the Moon, you reckon?
I don't know the Castlevania games all that well, so.
All right. Our guess is this Castlevania Circle of the Moon? I'm gonna be so annoyed if it's Harmony of Dissonance instead.
Okay. So, This Metroidvania was developed by Konami Computer Entertainment in Kobe in Japan and published by Konami Worldwide. It was released on Game Boy Advance in 2001 to much critical acclaim and follows heir to the Hunter Whip Nathan Graves in the series' perpetual fight against the evil Dracula. This is Castlevania Circle of the Moon.
God.
Well done. That
was truly a 50-50 coin flip at the end there. Good
and you are
Lord.
100% correct in my profile. I love the Castlevania DDS system in this game. It is fucking awesome. It's one of my favorite Castlevanias.
No, when I was thinking about it, I was like, that seems like the kind of like weird, like, you know, complicated but also like very easily exploitable system that like Michael would enjoy the fuck out of.
Yeah. This was one of my first, if not one of my first like Game Boy Advance game. I don't remember what it was, but it was very early on, and I loved it. And yeah, I chose the Castlevania games because I was like, there's 3 to choose from. Like, it's literally, you have to try and narrow down which one of the 3 it's gonna be. But yeah, that was really, really well played. That was like right to the wire.
I will say, I'm pretty impressed that I guessed Konami initially when I said Boktai. And then, you know,
when you guys started drifting away, you guys said Castlevania and Konami like pretty early on, and then just forgot about that existed, and just never went back to it until very late. And I was like,
I think it was like in the back of our minds, but like, yeah. But yeah, banger game. I believe that's
all
one of the
all
ones
3 of those games are amazing. First is so good.
They're in the Advanced Collection, which is on Switch, and they go on sale.
Which came out less than 5 years ago. So I was like, better clarify.
Yeah.
That's the problem these days. There's so many of these bloody collections around and remasters and all this shit.
Like, the thing with Castlevania, right, is that, like, you know, as a series, yeah, like, standalone games, we haven't had any new ones, but then it's like, is the Castlevania content in Dead Cells a new Castlevania, right? Like, is that a new entry in the Castlevania series? Because it has actual story that's canon to the rest of the series. But
for anything like that, I would say no, because it's not the leading title. If it was Castlevania featuring Dead Cells, then yeah, I'd say it's a Castlevania game.
That's fair.
But this is the same logic would be with Smash Brothers. It's like, oh, but the Castlevania guys are in Smash Brothers. Does that make that a Castlevania game? It's like, well, no. It's technically not, because it's not their game. That would be my logic to getting around that particular hurdle.
Yeah, that's fair. Anyway, we did it. We were successful, fairly. Yeah, that about wraps up this episode of the Vookcast. Be sure to visit the site www.vooks.net for all your Nintendo news, reviews, and everything in between. To keep up to date, follow the site on Twitter at Vookcast.net, which is all spelled out, or jump on over to our Discord at bit.ly/VooksDiscord. You can find all of our social information and links for all the stories covered in this episode in the episode notes on whatever platform you're listening to. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next show.